What is going on, friends? Matt Carter here again, and your source for everything real estate related on YouTube. If you haven't been here before, my name is Matt Carter. I am a realtor in the London, Ontario region, and my primary focus is residential real estate in the city and the surrounding regions. So again, if this is your first time, help me out a little bit. Hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and also make sure you hit that little bell to make sure you're notified for any videos I have coming up in the future. So today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's mainly going to be focused on a lot of the first-time home buyers out there. And if you're looking to break into the market, if you're not too familiar with the process, and it's the actual timeline and how long it's going to take from you to start the process and complete the process and move into your new house. So a lot of these timelines I'm going to be talking about can vary from stage to stage, and I'll make sure I let you know exactly what the expectation should be so that there aren't any surprises when you go in to look for a house and you find it's taking a lot longer or you feel it's a little more rushed than you expected. So I will let you know exactly, or roughly I should say, what the time frame should be for each stage of the home buying process. So starting off in the very early stages of looking for a house, and this stage is going to be when you're actually figuring out if it's right for you to buy a house and if you can afford it, everything like that. So this can really vary depending on where you are, what your current situation is, and it could be anywhere from, a couple days of looking into your finances and talking it over with whoever you're looking to make the decision with to see if it is the right stage. And the timeline is kind of never ending, so to speak, for this one. So it could take you a couple days to figure out. It could take you a couple years to figure out. And a lot of that could be as well, you figure out maybe you are wanting to make a move, but you're not maybe financially ready yet. And then in that stage, you're going to be looking to make sure your savings are in order so you can afford your down payment. You're budgeting to make sure that what you are going to purchase eventually will fit into your monthly budget, and you're going to have money left over for, whatever your lifestyle entails, whether it's like you like to travel, whether you have kids that you need to make sure that are taken care of first. So there's going to be a lot of different things to consider in this stage, and for each person it is going to vary. So as I say, it could be from a very short duration to as long as you need to get ready and get set. So the next step, and this could be part and parcel of that first step of figuring out if you are ready, would be to find a mortgage broker or a mortgage specialist that can help you and figure out exactly what the bank is going to lend you at the end of the day. They're going to require a whole bunch of documentation from you in terms of your pay stubs, your savings, any debts that you may have. And then they're going to run all those numbers through their system and spit out a number at the other end. And that will tell you exactly how much the bank is willing to lend you. And from there, you can figure out where you're looking in terms of affordability. Now, in terms of finding a mortgage broker, this could take anywhere from, again, a few days to a few weeks, depending on how quickly you're moving along the process. Using your references, people that you know, people that they've used in the past, are definitely going to be a great place to start for looking for a mortgage broker. But you're definitely going to want to meet with a few, figure out what kind of rates that they're giving you and what kind of services that they're providing to you. And that's definitely going to be your first step in getting your pre-approval taken care of. That then leads us right into the next step, which is kind of linked to this one, and that's getting pre-approved. If you decide that you want to keep moving forward with the process and they do all their paperwork side of things, once that is all submitted, it usually takes several days for the bank to actually get back to them and get those numbers hashed out. So looking at that time frame, anywhere from a couple days to a week and a bit, depending on availability of all that documentation that you submit. All right, next one up, and again, you can be doing this all along the same time that you're interviewing mortgage brokers and specialists and figuring out if it actually is the right steps for you to take, and it's to find a realtor to work with. So what you're going to want to do, same kind of general steps you're going to take that you did with your mortgage broker, you're going to want to find out with your realtor. So make sure you talk to a few realtors, figure out exactly what services they provide, and if you just get along with them. You may be spending a long period of time with them over several months, which I'll get to in the next step. looking for a house. So you want to make sure that you're with somebody that you actually enjoy taking you around to homes, giving you all the info. Make sure they're knowledgeable about the area and any specifics about the criteria that you are looking for specifically. So again, this could take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks, depending on how quickly you are moving. And definitely start with your referrals. Start with anybody you see on YouTube, maybe, and just give them a call, send them an email, and make sure that you get a good rapport going on before you end up making your final decision. All right, next up, once you've figured out who you're working with and you actually want to go forward with the process, is going to be actually looking for a house. Now, again, this is one of those time frames that can vary pretty drastically depending on what you're looking for in your specific case, as well as the market conditions and how motivated you are to move. So I've worked with people who have found a place in a couple days, only seeing a few properties, but I've also worked with people over a year long, sometimes going on 2 years long, depending on if they're looking for a very specific property or they're just waiting for that right time in their life to move. So there's no real correct answer to this and how long it should take you to find a house. On average, I would say it does take a couple months, especially within this last few years that we've seen a seller's market in the London and a lot across North America as well. So definitely be prepared to see quite a few houses, make a few offers, and just prepare for the several months and long haul potentially of looking for a house in this seller's market. The next step, once you've found that house, once you've had your offer accepted, it will be the conditional period. So if you had any conditions in your offer, and in this market, if you were lucky enough to have any, such as an inspection, financing clauses, or just anything else that you and your realtor have decided that you would need in there, you'll have a conditional period after when your offer is accepted. So this is usually a period which takes place over a week or so, and this is negotiable between the two parties involved in the transaction. And if you have an inspection or a financing clause in there, they usually do get resolved within the first 3 to 5 days. Sometimes they take a little longer depending on the situation, but generally speaking, it's going to be all resolved within the week, sometimes shorter. After the conditional period is up, or if you just had a firm offer to begin with, there'll be a closing period. So this is going to be the duration between your offer, the time your offer was accepted, all the way to when you get your keys to move into that house. Normally speaking, in this market, in the London market, we're seeing on average it's anywhere between 30 to 90 days. I know that's a pretty big spread, but for first-time homebuyers, you might be looking more for a shorter closing, and since you have the flexibility for it, and with the upper end of the price range, you might be looking for a longer closing date depending on what the sellers are doing. But on average, if you kind of split the difference there, you're looking for about 45 to 60 days until you actually can take possession and move into that house. Also, during that closing period, you'll have a couple occasions in which you're going to need to do a walkthrough of that house. Now, this is usually negotiable within the contract. However, generally it is 2 occasions where you get to do a walkthrough of that home. Sometimes these are reserved in case the bank needs to do an appraisal of the property, which can happen a few weeks after the offer has firmed up. And the bank will just go through and make sure that it actually is worth what you are going to be paying for it, and then they are going to lend you the full amount of money. But otherwise, the other walkthroughs that can happen if you don't have to have that occur is just for your interest going through the property, making sure that you get all your measurements correct. You can take some paint swatches. You can have your kids pick out their rooms if you want to do that. That usually occurs first. And then the second walkthrough is going to be usually 24 to 48 hours before you move in and close on the property. And that second one is just to make sure that the house is still in the same condition that you originally purchased it in. You want to make sure that all the appliances are still working, the sellers didn't, ding any walls, scrape any walls or floors, anything like that. Because if there are any issues, that's going to be the time when you're going to want to deal with it. So next, and kind of right before you are going to get possession of that house, and the week before, you're going to be going and signing all the paperwork and documentation necessary in order for you to actually get the mortgage on the property, assuming you're getting a mortgage, as well as any other insurances and other paperwork that your lawyer is going to need signed. So this can happen anywhere from the day of your closing all the way up to the week before, so plan for that accordingly. This is also going to be the time when you're going to need to pay all your additional closing costs that are associated with your purchase. So if you're not too familiar with that, make sure you watch my video that I've done in the past that breaks down all of those closing costs. So finally, we're at closing day, the day that you agreed upon that you're going to move into the house. And a lot of people think as soon as the clock strikes midnight and rolls over to that day that you immediately have possession. And unfortunately, that is not the case. There's still a lot of paperwork and a lot of things that need to happen on closing day between the two banks that are dealing in the process, your lawyers. So there's a lot of moving parts. Generally speaking, I advise my clients to not plan for any moves if you're planning on moving on your closing day until later in the afternoon. Most of the times you won't get your keys until afternoon. Sometimes it can be as late as 4 or maybe even 5 o'clock in the evening. So make sure you're planning accordingly with that in mind. Also, one thing to note too is if there are any holdups with your bank, with the mortgage, with money moving from A to B, sometimes homes don't close on the actual agreed upon closing day. In that case, what happens, assuming that everything else is fine, is just kind of the money taking a little while to move from A to B, then the closing will get moved usually. So that's why it's really important when you are negotiating on a closing date to try not to have it land on a Friday. Because as we know, a lot of banks don't do work on the weekends and that money won't get transferred until the following Monday. So that's why it's always kind of nice to get your closings Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Avoid Fridays and also keep note of any holidays that are occurring during that time. So as you can see from the quick summary here, it does take a little bit of time in order to purchase a house, and it can vary pretty drastically depending on how quickly you are willing to make the move and just the overall situations and the circumstances that are occurring between both your side of things and the seller side of things. So if you're expecting to make a move within 30 days, you might want to plan a little more further in advance and anticipate a little bit longer time frame depending on what is going on in your life. So make sure if you found any value to this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe, and get notified as well for all my videos coming up in the future. And until then, take care.